At the precise instant when Hillary Clinton declared to President Trump that history is destined to recall you as a felon who belongs behind bars during a live television broadcast, she committed the catastrophic strategic error that befalls every ethically compromised political figure, for she completely neglected to recall that she was launching an offensive against an individual who had dedicated the previous 8 years to the meticulous accumulation of evidence regarding her expunged electronic correspondence, the alleged pay-for-access machinations of the Clinton Foundation, and her specific role in the divestment of 20% of America's uranium assets to Russian interests. Fox News had organized an event they were billing as the 2024 debate, a confrontation that America demanded, representing the ultimate rematch between Trump and Clinton. The concept had originated merely as speculation across social media platforms, pondering what might occur if Trump and Hillary were to debate once more, but this time, armed with all the evidence that had surfaced since 2016, including the WikiLeaks email dumps, the various congressional investigations, the Federal Bureau of Investigation reports, the revelations concerning the Clinton Foundation, and the Uranium One documents essentially everything that Hillary had successfully avoided discussing during the 2016 campaign by dismissing it all as fabricated news or Russian disinformation campaigns. Fox had extended the formal offer, and Trump had accepted with immediate alacrity, as he had been biding his time for this exact opportunity. Hillary's team had initially declined the invitation, but after Trump's legal challenges began to accumulate throughout 2023 and 2024, she had altered her decision, believing that the indictments against him had vindicated her previous assertions. She operated under the assumption that history had proven her correct, and she believed she could finally exact her revenge upon the man who had defeated her in 2016 and had haunted her consciousness ever since. She intended to appear on live television, brand him a criminal to his face, and observe with satisfaction as he squirmed under the pressure. She possessed absolutely no conception of what Trump had prepared for this encounter. For 3 consecutive weeks, Trump had worked obsessively alongside his legal team, opposition researchers, and former federal prosecutors to compile what he termed the Clinton crime file, a comprehensive and exhaustive dossier detailing every scandal involving Hillary Clinton, complete with supporting documentation that would withstand the most rigorous scrutiny. This encounter was not destined to be defined by insults or ad hominem attacks. Rather, this was to be an engagement centered on facts, hard evidence, and undeniable receipts. The materials included emails obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests, FBI reports that had been declassified or leaked to the public, transcripts of congressional testimony from multiple investigative bodies, State Department cables demonstrating the direct correlation between donations to the Clinton Foundation and subsequent government favors, contracts, and financial records related to Uranium One, findings from 8 separate inquiries into the Benghazi tragedy, and WikiLeaks documents that had been authenticated by multiple independent sources. Everything was meticulously organized into color-coded binders with tabs, cross-referenced for rapid access, verified for accuracy multiple times, and prepared for high-definition display on the massive screens that Fox would position behind the podiums. Trump had even retained the services of a documentary filmmaker to create visual presentations of the most damning evidence, including timelines illustrating donations followed immediately by favorable government actions, side-by-side comparisons of what Hillary communicated to her family versus what she communicated to the public regarding Benghazi, and financial charts delineating the revenue sources and expenditures of the Clinton Foundation. Each individual piece of evidence was engineered to be immediately comprehensible to the viewing public, to be undeniable even to the most ardent skeptics, and to be devastatingly effective when presented in a logical sequence. Most significantly, Trump had prepared rebuttals for every defense Hillary might attempt to offer. If she claimed a matter was investigated, He possessed the investigation findings, revealing exactly what had been discovered. If she asserted a claim was debunked, he held the evidence demonstrating it was not. And if she attempted to deflect by asking, "What about your scandals?" he had direct responses prepared, comparing classified documents stored in a secure facility against those on a basement server. He had wargamed every conceivable exchange with his advisory team, practiced his comedic and dramatic timing, and prepared himself to prosecute the case rather than merely debate the issues. Trump was not arriving to engage in a debate. He was arriving to prosecute a case on live television in front of 50 million viewers, armed with the receipts that Hillary believed she had buried forever. What transpired over the subsequent 2 hours would compel Hillary Clinton to defend scandals she had spent 8 years evading, admit to actions she had denied for nearly a decade, and face interrogations regarding criminality that made Trump's legal challenges appear akin to minor parking infractions. If you have ever desired to witness the outcome when Trump finally secures the opportunity to confront Hillary with all the evidence on live television, this is that moment, and one must wait until he produces the Clinton Foundation donor list at minute 47, at which point her visage drains of all color. The Fox News studio in New York was packed beyond its maximum capacity, with 500 people in the audience, representing the network's most extensive debate configuration to date. The crowd was roughly divided, with Trump supporters donning MAGA hats and American flag apparel on one side, and Clinton supporters wearing Stronger Together shirts and I'm With Her buttons on the other, accompanied by a smaller section of genuinely undecided voters in the center, who were intrigued to witness this unprecedented rematch. The stage was arranged for maximum dramatic effect, featuring 2 podiums angled toward one another, massive high-definition screens positioned behind each candidate to display the evidence, and Bret Baier at the moderator's desk between them, appearing like a man who was aware he was about to witness either the greatest debate or the greatest disaster in the history of television, and possibly both simultaneously. Hillary Clinton arrived first to enthusiastic applause from her supporters and polite acknowledgement from the remainder of the room. She was attired in a white pantsuit, symbolically echoing her sartorial choice on election night in 2016, and she appeared confident, almost eager for the engagement. She had been preparing for this specific moment since the announcement of Trump's first indictment, ready to finally label him a criminal on national television, finally able to say, "I told you so" to the American populace, and finally secure vindication for the loss of 2016. She possessed absolutely no foresight regarding the events that were about to unfold. Donald Trump walked out 3 minutes later, to a deafening roar from his section of the audience, the applause and cheering lasting nearly 2 full minutes, continuing for so long that Bret Baier had to gesture repeatedly for silence. Trump wore his signature dark suit and red tie, waved to the crowd with that familiar sweeping gesture, and walked to his podium carrying something that Hillary immediately noticed: a thick, highly organized binder. Or rather, multiple binders stacked neatly by his staff at his podium. Her confident smile faltered slightly, for Trump arriving with prepared materials was never a favorable omen for his opponents. Bret Baier began his introduction, laying out the format, which included opening statements, followed by moderated questions with rebuttals, then direct exchanges, and finally closing statements. He reminded both candidates and the audience that this event was intended to address issues facing America rather than personal attacks, a reminder that would remain effective for approximately 90 seconds. "Secretary Clinton," Bret began, "your opening statement, please." Hillary launched immediately into her prepared remarks, her voice projecting strength and confidence. "Thank you, Bret, for the American people deserve to know the truth about the man standing across from me. Donald Trump is facing multiple criminal indictments. He is accused of mishandling classified documents, obstructing justice, and attempting to overturn a free and fair election. making him, by any reasonable definition, a criminal who should be in prison rather than running for president. Her supporters applauded enthusiastically as she turned to face Trump directly. History will remember you as a criminal, Mr. Trump, a man who placed himself above the law, above the Constitution, and above everything this country stands for. You are a disgrace to the office you held and a danger to American democracy. She smiled, confident that she had landed a devastating opening blow. Trump smiled back, though it was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting years for this exact moment, realizing that while she called him a criminal, he had brought the receipts, and this was a game of chess. "Well, Hillary," Trump said, his voice carrying that Queen's accent that his supporters loved and his critics mocked. "Thank you for that. Very nice, very eloquent. You have always been good with words, perhaps not so good with emails, but great with words." The audience laughed, causing Hillary's smile to tighten. "But since you want to talk about criminals," Trump continued, reaching for his first binder, "let's talk about criminals, because I brought some evidence tonight. Actual evidence, not accusations, not opinions, but evidence." He opened the binder and nodded to the production booth, causing images to appear on the massive screens behind both podiums. "Hillary, in 2015, you had a private email server in the basement of your house. True or false?" Hillary's expression changed, as this was not how the exchange was supposed to proceed. She was supposed to be prosecuting him, not defending herself. "That matter was thoroughly investigated by the FBI," she began. "I didn't ask if it was investigated," Trump interrupted. "I asked, true or false? Did you have a private email server in your basement? Yes or no?" She paused, then answered carefully, "I used a private email system." "True," Trump said. "Thank you." He pulled out more documents. "And on that private server, you conducted official State Department business, including classified information, correct?" "The classification issues were reviewed," she attempted. "Yes or no, Hillary? Classified information on your private server?" Another pause ensued before she replied, "Some materials were later deemed to contain classified information." "Thousands of emails," Trump corrected. "Classified information on a server in your basement, not a secure government facility, but your basement." He let that statement resonate before continuing. "Now, in March 2015, you received a congressional subpoena for those emails, correct?" "I complied with." "Yes or no? You got a subpoena in March 2015? "Yes." "And after receiving that subpoena, what did you do with 33,000 of those emails?" Silence followed. For Hillary knew exactly where this line of questioning was leading. Trump did not wait for her answer, instead displaying the timeline on the screens. March 4th, 2015. Congressional subpoena issued for all emails. March 25th to 31st, 2015. 33,000 emails deleted. Computer technician uses bleach bit to prevent recovery. Multiple devices destroyed with hammers. You deleted 33,000 emails after getting a subpoena. That is called destroying evidence. That is called obstruction of justice. The Trump section of the audience erupted in applause. Hillary tried to respond. Those were personal emails. After a subpoena, Hillary, Trump retorted, "You decided which emails were personal after you were ordered to turn them all over. Then you used BleachBit, which I didn't even know was a thing until you taught me, to make sure nobody could recover them. And you had people physically destroy devices with hammers." He turned to the audience. "Folks, if I had deleted 33,000 emails after getting a subpoena, I would be in prison right now. I would be in a cell. But somehow, Hillary did it, and nothing happened." He turned back to her, his voice rising. "You want to talk about mishandling classified documents. I kept documents in Mar-a-Lago, a secure location with Secret Service protection and a locked room. while you kept them on a private server in your basement. He was on a roll now, his voice increasing in volume. You want to talk about obstruction? I cooperated with the National Archives, while you destroyed 33,000 emails with BleachBit. He pulled out printed testimony and displayed it on the screens, showing FBI Director James Comey's statement that Hillary was extremely careless with classified information, but recommending no prosecution. Comey said you were extremely careless with some of the most sensitive information our country has, but no charges, nothing. Explain that to America, Hillary. Explain the double standard. His final line was delivered with perfect timing. You called me a criminal, Hillary. Yet, you deleted 33,000 emails after a congressional subpoena and destroyed evidence with hammers and BleachBit. But somehow I am the criminal. Give me a break. The audience reaction was deafening, with his supporters chanting, "Lock her up! Lock her up!" while her supporters tried to shout them down, leaving Brett Baier struggling to restore order. Hillary sat at her podium visibly rattled, as this was supposed to be her moment of vindication, yet instead, she was defending her email scandal all over again. Brett Baier tried to move to his prepared questions, but Trump was already pulling out his next binder. Let's talk about your foundation, Hillary, the Clinton Foundation. Because I think America deserves to know about the pay-to-play scheme you ran out of the State Department. Hillary's face went pale, a reaction Trump noticed and grinned at, knowing nothing ruins a charity narrative faster than the donor list. Your foundation raised over $1 billion while you were Secretary of State and during your presidential campaign? Correct? The Clinton Foundation is a charity that has helped millions of people around the world, she deflected. Yes or no, Hillary? Over $1 billion? The foundation did important work, she insisted. Did it raise over $1 billion? She could not deny public records. Yes. Good. Now how much of that $1 billion went to actual charitable programs, to actually helping people? Hillary shifted uncomfortably. The foundation's work includes. Trump cut her off and displayed data on the screens from multiple charity watchdog organizations showing the Clinton Foundation spent only 5 to 15% of its revenue on direct charitable programs. 5 to 15%. That is the range. The rest went to salaries, travel expenses, and your daughter Chelsea, who made hundreds of thousands a year from the foundation, while your family traveled the world on foundation money. He pulled out another document. And speaking of Chelsea, there are credible reports from WikiLeaks and investigative journalists that her $3 million wedding was partially paid for with foundation funds. Care to deny that under oath? Hillary's attorneys would have been screaming at this point, but this was not a legal proceeding, so she could only respond, "Those allegations are false." Then release the financial records, Trump challenged. Let's see where every dollar went. But you won't, will you? Trump moved to his next point without waiting for an answer. Now, let's talk about who donated to this charity while you were Secretary of State. The person in charge of American foreign policy, the person who could approve arms deals, international agreements, and access to the U.S. government. He displayed a list on the screens with donors and amounts clearly visible, highlighting foreign government donations during Hillary's tenure as Secretary of State. Saudi Arabia gave between $10 and $25 million, Qatar gave between $1 and $5 million, Algeria gave $500,000, Kuwait gave between $5 and $10 million, Oman gave between $1 and $5 million, and the United Arab Emirates gave between $1 and $5 million. Trump read each one aloud, letting the numbers sink in. Foreign governments donated tens of millions to your foundation while you were Secretary of State. And what happened after they donated? He pulled out State Department cables and approval documents. Saudi Arabia donated $25 million, then got a massive arms deal approved. Qatar donated $5 million and got meetings, access, and favorable treatment. Every single government that donated major money got something from your State Department. He turned to the audience. Folks, this is textbook corruption. Foreign governments pay money to your foundation, then get favors from your government agency. And that is not charity, that is bribery with extra steps. Hillary tried to defend herself. Those donations went through proper channels. Proper channels? Trump mocked. Your foundation took money from governments that execute gay people, that oppress women, that funded terrorism, and you took their millions while you were America's chief diplomat. Trump moved to his next prepared section regarding Haiti. Let's talk about Haiti. The earthquake in 2010 was a terrible tragedy, and billions in aid poured in, much of it going through your State Department and your foundation. But what happened? He showed images of Haiti today, still devastated and poor. Where did the money go, Hillary? Haitian protesters have been asking that question for years. He displayed photos of protests in Haiti with signs reading, "Clinton, where's the money?" and added, "Your brother Tony Rodham got a gold mining contract in Haiti, very lucrative, very convenient, but regular Haitians are still waiting for the hospital, schools, and housing they were promised." Trump's voice rose with indignation. Whether real or performed, it played well. You took money meant for earthquake victims, and it disappeared into a maze of contractors, consultants, and Clinton associates. That is not charity, Hillary, that is theft. His final summary was devastating. The Clinton Foundation raised $1 billion, gave 5 to 15% to actual charity, took tens of millions from foreign governments while you were Secretary of State, and those governments got favors, while Haiti money disappeared and your family got rich. He looked directly at her. That is not a foundation, Hillary. That is a pay-to-play scheme. That is corruption. That is selling American foreign policy to the highest bidder. He pointed at her accusingly. And you want to call me corrupt? Your foundation is under investigation by multiple agencies, and donations dropped 90% after you lost the election. Why? Because people weren't donating to help charity. They were paying for access to you. The Trump section roared approval, while the Clinton section sat in uncomfortable silence, and even some of her supporters looked troubled. Trump was on a roll, and he was not stopping. Grabbing his third binder marked Uranium 1, in large letters visible to the cameras. Now let's talk about Russia. Hillary. Real Russia collusion. Not the fake Russia hoax you spent 4 years pushing, but actual Russians paying you while you sold them American uranium. Hillary's face flushed. The Mueller investigation found nothing. $40 million in 2 years, and Mueller found zero collusion with me. But we are not talking about me. We are talking about you and Uranium 1. She had spent 4 years screaming Russia, so he brought actual Russian deals. Trump displayed a timeline on the screens, clear and undeniable. The Uranium 1 timeline showed that from 2009 to 2013, the Russian Atomic Energy Company sought to buy Uranium 1. From 2010 to 2013, Uranium 1 investors donated $145 million to the Clinton Foundation. In 2010, Hillary's State Department approved the sale. In 2013, the sale was completed with Russia controlling 20% of U.S. uranium production. And in 2010, Bill Clinton received $500,000 for a Moscow speech. You approved the sale of 20% of American uranium production capacity to Russia. True or false? Hillary tried the careful answer. That sale was reviewed and approved by 9 different government agencies. I didn't ask about 9 agencies. I asked about you as Secretary of State. Did you approve this sale? Yes or no? The State Department was one of 9. Yes or no? Yes. The sale was approved with State Department agreement. Thank you. Now, while this sale was being reviewed, Russians and Uranium 1 investors donated $145 million to your foundation. True or false? I was not involved in the foundations. True or false? She couldn't deny the public record. Donations were made. Trump pounded his podium. $145 million from Russians and people who directly benefited from the sale while you were deciding whether to approve it. He pulled out more documents. And your husband, Bill, who definitely was involved with your foundation, got paid $500,000 for a speech in Moscow from a Russian bank while you were reviewing the Uranium One deal. Trump walked toward center stage, addressing the audience directly. Folks, let me break this down so it is crystal clear. Russians and investors want to buy American uranium. They need Hillary's approval as Secretary of State. So, what happens? 1. They donate $145 million to her foundation. 2. They pay Bill $500,000 for a speech. 3. Hillary approves the sale. 4. Russia gets 20% of our uranium. He turned back to Hillary. That is called a bribe, Hillary. That is actual collusion with Russia. That is selling out American national security for foundation donations. He pulled out one more document. And the best part? The FBI was investigating this. They had evidence of Russian bribery and kickbacks, but that investigation was buried. Why? Because you were supposed to win in 2016. And if you had won, nobody would have ever known about Uranium One. Trump's voice rose to its climax. But I won. And suddenly you spent 4 years screaming that I colluded with Russia. Mueller investigation, 2 impeachments, non-stop hysteria about Russia. He pointed at her accusingly. That is called projection, Hillary. You sold uranium to Russia while they paid you $145 million. But somehow, I am the Russian agent? Give me a break. He shook his head in exaggerated disbelief. You know what Mueller found after 2 years investigating me? Nothing. 0. No collusion. No conspiracy. No deals with Russia. He held up the uranium. 1 documents, but with you, we have the receipts. $145 million in donations, a $500,000 speech, uranium sale approved, all documented, all proven. That is actual Russia collusion. His final line was delivered with perfect Trump timing. So let me get this straight. Russians donate $145 million to your foundation. Okay. You approve uranium sale to Russia. Okay. Bill gets $500,000 for a Moscow speech. Okay. But I have a phone call with Ukraine, and you try to impeach me? He threw his hands up. Hillary, you sold out America to Russia, not me. And you spent years projecting your crimes onto me so nobody would notice. The audience erupted. Chants of "lock her up" filling the studio, and even some moderates looked convinced by the documentary evidence. Hillary sat frozen, unable to effectively counter facts and financial records. Trump grabbed another binder, this one with photos attached to the front, causing Hillary to visibly tense. Now, let's talk about the 4 Americans who died on your watch. Benghazi. Hillary tried to cut him off. That tragedy has been investigated by 8 different, yes, investigated. And you know what those investigations found? That you lied to everyone, to America, to the families of the dead Americans. You lied. She thought investigations cleared her, but they documented her lies. Trump displayed photos on the screens of Ambassador Chris Stevens, Sean Smith, Tyrone Woods, and Glenn Dougherty, stating, 4 Americans killed on September 11, 2012, in Benghazi, Libya. While you were Secretary of State, they worked for you. They died on your watch. He pulled out security request documents. Before the attack, these men and others at that facility sent multiple requests for increased security. They said they were vulnerable. They said they needed protection, and your State Department denied those requests. Yes or no? Security decisions are complex. Yes or no? Were security requests denied? The security situation was under constant evaluation. They asked for help. You said no. They died. Is that accurate? Hillary couldn't deny what multiple investigations had documented. Security requests were evaluated based on available resources and were denied. Trump pulled out the most damaging evidence, Hillary's own emails. The night of the attack at 11:12 p.m., you sent an email to your daughter, Chelsea. Let me read it. He displayed it on the screens. 2 of our officers were killed in Benghazi by an al-Qaeda-like group. You told Chelsea the truth that night. You knew it was terrorism. You knew it was al-Qaeda. He pulled out more documents, public statements Hillary made to the American people in the days following the attack. But you know what you told the American people? You blamed a YouTube video, a protest that never happened. You stood at those caskets and told the families it was about an internet video. He showed video of Hillary at the casket ceremony, telling grieving families the attack stemmed from an inflammatory video. You lied to their faces. At their loved ones' funerals. You knew it was terrorism. You told Chelsea it was terrorism, but you told those families it was a video. Trump's voice became harsh. Why? Why did you lie? Because it was an election year, 2 months before the vote, and admitting it was a terrorist attack would hurt Obama's al-Qaeda is on the run narrative. So you lied. He pulled out what he had been saving, the clip everyone remembered. And then, when you were finally questioned about it in Congress, you said this. He played the infamous video of Hillary angrily shouting, "What difference at this point does it make?" The audience gasped, as even people who had forgotten the context remembered that moment. Trump let it play twice, then turned to the audience. 4 dead Americans, and when asked why you lied about what caused it, she asked, "What difference does it make?" He pointed at the screen showing the 4 men's photos. It made a difference to them. It made a difference to their families. It made a difference to Americans who deserve the truth. Trump's voice rose. You denied security. You ignored warnings. You lied about the cause. You lied to their families. And when questioned, you said, "What difference does it make?" He walked toward her podium. Those 4 Americans made a difference. Hillary. They served their country. They depended on you for protection. And you failed them. Then you lied about how they died. Then you acted like it didn't matter. His final line was quiet but cutting. You asked what difference it makes. Ask their families. Ask the Gold Star families you lied to at those caskets. And they will tell you what difference it makes. The studio was completely silent, except for some crying from the audience. Trump moved to his next attack without giving Hillary time to recover. Let's talk about your Wall Street speeches, the ones you gave for hundreds of thousands of dollars, the ones you refused to release the transcripts for. What were you hiding, Hillary? Private speeches? Public lies. Goldman Sachs paid you $675,000 for 3 speeches. That is $225,000 per speech for about an hour each. What did you tell them that was worth $225,000? Hillary tried to deflect. Those were paid speaking engagements that many former officials. Then release the transcripts, he challenged. If there is nothing to hide, show America what you told Goldman Sachs for $675,000. He didn't wait for her response. But we know what you said. WikiLeaks released some of it. Let me read your own words. He displayed the quote on screen. You need both a public and a private position. You admitted you lie to the public. You have one position you tell voters and another position you tell Wall Street. In your own words. Trump walked the stage, building momentum. You attack Wall Street publicly, say break up the big banks, hold them accountable. But privately, you take their millions. You tell them one thing, you tell voters another. He pulled out more speech fees. Deutsche Bank paid $485,000. Morgan Stanley paid $225,000. Bank of America paid $675,000. UBS paid $225,000. Over $21 million in speaking fees from the very banks and corporations you claim to fight against. Trump's voice dripped with sarcasm. What a fighter for the working class, taking $225,000 per hour from Goldman Sachs. He transitioned to his next attack. And speaking of the working class, let's talk about what you really think of them. He queued up the video everyone remembered of Hillary at a fundraiser, saying half of Trump's supporters belong in a basket of deplorables. He let it play in full. And the context didn't help her, as she had called millions of Americans deplorable, irredeemable, racist, sexist, and homophobic. Trump turned to the audience. She called you deplorable. American voters, people who work hard, pay taxes, love their country. You are deplorable because you didn't support her. He pointed at different sections of the audience. You are deplorable if you wanted jobs back in America. You are deplorable if you wanted secure borders. You are deplorable if you believed in the Second Amendment. You are deplorable if you loved your country. His voice rose with indignation. How dare you call American voters deplorable? These are patriots. These are people who work hard every day. And you called them a basket of deplorables. Trump walked back to his podium. You fly around in private jets while lecturing people about climate change. You live in mansions while preaching about inequality. You made $240 million after your time in public service. How does that happen? How does public service make you that rich? He looked directly at her. You told Wall Street one thing privately. You told voters another publicly. You took $675,000 from Goldman Sachs. You called American voters deplorable. And you wonder why you lost? His final assessment was brutal. You are not a champion of the working class, Hillary. You are an elitist who despises regular Americans, and they saw through you. That is why you lost. Trump could see Hillary was reeling, and he moved in for what he intended as the final blow before his closing statement. You know what bothers me most, Hillary? It has been 8 years since you lost, and you still haven't accepted it, have you? Hillary tried to rally. Russia interfered in our election. Here we go. Russia, Russia, Russia. It is always someone else's fault, never yours. 7 years later, still making excuses. Trump pulled out what appeared to be a book. What Happened? By Hillary Clinton. You wrote a whole book about why you lost. Called it What Happened? Should have called it Everyone's Fault, but Mine. He flipped through it theatrically. Let's see who you blamed. Russia, Comey, Bernie Sanders, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, James Comey again, the media, sexism, the DNC, voters who stayed home, voters who voted third party. He closed the book. You blamed everyone except the person who ran a terrible campaign and had a record of corruption. You. Trump displayed polling data on the screens. You lost because you ignored Wisconsin. Didn't campaign there once after the primary. You lost because you called voters deplorable. You lost because of the email scandal, the Clinton Foundation, the Wall Street speeches. You lost because Americans didn't trust you. He pulled out trust polling from 2016, showing only 36% of Americans found Hillary trustworthy. Nobody trusted you, and you know why? Because of everything we have talked about tonight. Deleted emails, pay-to-play, Benghazi lies, Wall Street speeches, the corruption, the lies, the sense that rules don't apply to you. Trump's voice became harder. But instead of accepting that, you spent 4 years saying the election was stolen, that Russia stole it, that I was illegitimate. You undermined American democracy for 4 years because you couldn't accept that you lost. He pointed at her accusingly. Mueller spent $40 million and found no collusion. But you kept saying it. You kept claiming the election was rigged, that it was stolen, that Russia gave it to me. Trump's voice rose with genuine anger. But when I questioned the 2020 election, suddenly I am a threat to democracy. When you spend 4 years saying an election was stolen, that is okay. But when I question one, I am destroying America. He shook his head. Rules for thee, but not for me. That is the Clinton way. You can say elections are rigged. You can refuse to accept results. You can spend years claiming I was illegitimate, but if I do it, I am dangerous. Trump walked to center stage for his final point of this round. You never graciously conceded. You blamed everyone but yourself. You spent years undermining the election you lost. You convinced millions of Democrats that Russia stole the election, which was false, as Mueller proved. He looked directly at her. You couldn't accept that American voters rejected you, that we chose me over you, that we looked at your record of corruption and said, no thanks. So you blamed Russia. You blamed Comey. You blamed everyone. His final line was delivered with satisfaction. But the truth is simple. You lost because you were a terrible candidate with a corrupt record, and 8 years later, you still can't admit it. Bret Baier, seeing they were approaching the 2-hour mark, tried to move to closing statements, but Trump held up his hand. Actually, Bret, I want to summarize everything we have covered tonight because I think it is important that America sees the full picture. He stood and walked to center stage, commanding the room. Hillary called me a criminal at the start of this debate. So let's review who the real criminal is. He began ticking off points on his fingers, displaying each corresponding document on the screens as he went. You deleted 33,000 emails after receiving a congressional subpoena. Fact. FBI documented it. You destroyed devices with hammers and used BleachBit to prevent recovery. Fact. Congressional testimony confirmed it. You kept classified information on a private server in your basement. Fact. Comey called you extremely careless. Your foundation took $145 million from Russians while you approved the uranium. One sale. Fact. Financial records prove it. Your foundation took tens of millions from foreign governments while you were Secretary of State. Fact. Tax returns show it. Your foundation gave only 5 to 15% to actual charity work. Fact. Watchdogs documented it. You denied security requests in Benghazi. Investigation found it. You lied about what caused the Benghazi attack. Fact. Your own emails prove it. You told families it was a video. You told Chelsea it was terrorism. Fact. Documented in emails. You took $675,000 from Goldman Sachs for speeches. Fact. Financial disclosure shows it. You admitted having public and private positions. Fact. WikiLeaks released it. You called American voters deplorable. Video shows it. You have never truly accepted you lost in 2016. Fact. Your book and statements prove it. Trump walked across the stage, his voice building. Every single thing I have said tonight is documented. FBI reports, congressional testimony, your own emails, State Department records, Clinton Foundation tax returns, WikiLeaks, financial disclosures, video recordings. He spread his arms wide. All facts, all on record, all undeniable. He turned to Hillary. You called me a criminal, but you are the one who destroyed evidence after a subpoena. You called me corrupt, but you are the one who ran a pay-to-play foundation. You screamed about Russia, but you are the one who sold uranium to Russia for donations. You claimed moral authority, but you lied about Benghazi. You pretended to fight for workers, but you called them deplorable. Trump's voice reached its crescendo. I beat you in 2016 because American voters saw through you. They saw the corruption, the lies, the pay-to-play, the sense of entitlement, the contempt for regular people. They saw someone who put personal enrichment above public service, who sold access to the State Department, who lied to Gold Star families, who called voters names. He pointed at her, then at the audience, then at the cameras. And tonight, in front of 50 million people watching at home, I have just proven it all over again. With evidence, with facts, with receipts you can't deny. He walked back toward his podium, then turned for his final line. I beat you once because you were corrupt. I am beating you again tonight because you are still corrupt, and America is watching with the receipts. The conservative section of the audience erupted into a standing ovation that lasted over 2 minutes. Chants of "Lock her up" filling the studio, mixed with USA, USA, while Hillary sat at her podium, unable to respond, visibly shaken. Everything Trump had said was either documented fact or based on documented facts. She couldn't deny the emails, she couldn't deny the foundation donations, she couldn't deny her own words, she couldn't deny video recordings and congressional findings. For 8 years, she had managed to avoid directly confronting all these scandals at once, dismissing them separately as fake news, Russian disinformation, or Republican conspiracy theories, but Trump had just put them all together with evidence in one devastating 2-hour presentation, and there was nothing she could say to counter documented facts. The video exploded across every platform with a velocity that stunned even seasoned political observers who had watched countless viral moments come and go. Within 1 hour, 31 million views across YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and emerging platforms. Within 24 hours, 94 million views. Within 48 hours, 187 million views. Within 1 week, 267 million total views, making it one of the most watched political events in American history. Deleted 33,000 emails became the #1 trending topic on Twitter within minutes of the debate ending, staying there for 3 straight days. Clinton Foundation trended simultaneously. Uranium One entered mainstream consciousness for millions who had never heard of the scandal. And Lock Her Up roared back into the cultural lexicon. Conservative media went into overdrive, playing the debate in full multiple times. Fox News ran it on loop for 48 hours, while Newsmax and OAN featured special episodes breaking down each scandal Trump had exposed with additional documentation and expert analysis. Conservative podcasters and YouTubers created hours of content analyzing each exchange, verifying each fact Trump had cited, and celebrating what they saw as total vindication. But more significantly, even mainstream media couldn't ignore or spin away the debate. CNN, MSNBC, and network news were forced to cover it extensively because the viewership numbers were too massive to ignore. Their panels looked uncomfortable trying to defend Hillary against documented evidence, and fact-checkers who tried to defend her found themselves having to admit Trump's core facts were accurate, even if they disputed his interpretations. The New York Times ran a surprisingly balanced analysis titled "Trump's Debate Performance," built on foundation of documented controversies. Noting that while Trump's presentation was inflammatory and one-sided, most of his factual claims were based on congressional investigations, FBI reports, and other documented sources, forcing even Trump critics to admit the evidence existed. The Washington Post's fact-check was forced to rate many of Trump's claims as true or mostly true, including the deleted emails, the FBI findings, the Clinton Foundation donations, the Uranium One timeline, and the Benghazi statements. They added context and Hillary's explanations, but couldn't deny the underlying facts. Political polling showed dramatic shifts in public opinion within days. Should Hillary Clinton face renewed investigation? Before debate, 44% yes. After debate, 67% yes. Did Hillary Clinton commit crimes that should have been prosecuted? Before debate, 48% yes. After debate, 71% yes. Was Trump justified in his 2016 criticisms of Clinton? Before debate, 52% among Republicans. After debate, 89% overall. The phrase "lock her up" experienced a cultural resurrection. What had become somewhat taboo even in conservative circles, dismissed as extreme or inappropriate, suddenly felt vindicated to millions. Merchandise sellers couldn't print "lock her up" shirts fast enough. The phrase appeared at Trump rallies with renewed energy, and even moderate Republicans who had been uncomfortable with it started using it. The Clinton Foundation faced immediate consequences. as donations which had already declined significantly since 2016 virtually ceased. Major donors demanded investigations into how their money had been spent, and several countries that had donated while Hillary was Secretary of State quietly asked for their contributions to be returned, not wanting the association. Within 2 months, the foundation announced it was suspending most operations and laying off staff. Legal experts and former prosecutors began appearing on television to discuss the evidence Trump had presented. Several noted that the statute of limitations hadn't expired on certain potential crimes, particularly those involving the Clinton Foundation's operations and potential foreign agent registration violations. Alan Dershowitz, who had defended both Trump and Clinton at various times, appeared on multiple networks saying, "Whether you like Trump or not, he presented documented evidence that raises serious legal questions that were never properly investigated because of political considerations." Bar associations in multiple states received complaints about whether Hillary's law license should be reviewed given the evidence of potential misconduct. And while these went nowhere procedurally, they kept the scandals in the news cycle and the public consciousness. The debate became required viewing in political science and communications courses across the country, but not for the reasons Hillary's supporters might have hoped. Professors used it as a case study in how documentary evidence can overcome even the most skilled political deflection, how preparation defeats improvisation, and how avoiding accountability for years makes eventual confrontation more devastating. The Clinton debate, as it became known in academic circles, was analyzed as both political theater and prosecutorial technique. Conservative think tanks and media organizations announced major investigations into Clinton-era corruption, armed with renewed public interest and the roadmap Trump had provided. Judicial Watch, which had spent years filing Freedom of Information Act requests about Clinton scandals, saw their donor base explode. Within 6 months, they had released hundreds of previously unseen documents related to the Clinton Foundation and State Department that corroborated much of what Trump had presented. The phrase, "Where are the 33,000 emails?" became a rallying cry, with conservative commentators demanding their recovery and release, and technical experts appearing on shows explaining that while BleachBit makes recovery difficult, fragments might still exist on backup servers or in NSA databases. While this led nowhere legally, it kept the scandal alive in public discourse in a way it hadn't been since 2016. Hillary Clinton herself disappeared from public view immediately after the debate, but reports from inside her circle painted a picture of complete devastation. She had canceled all scheduled appearances within hours of leaving the Fox News studio. Her social media accounts, which had been active daily, went completely silent, and her team stopped returning media requests. Friends and former staffers described her as shattered, humiliated beyond words, and unable to comprehend how it went so wrong. According to sources who spoke to friendly journalists, Hillary had watched the debate replay once in full the next morning, then locked herself in her Chappaqua home for 2 weeks. She had been absolutely convinced that Trump's legal troubles would give her the upper hand, that she could finally prosecute him in the court of public opinion, that America would see her as vindicated, but instead, she had been forced to defend every scandal from her political career with documentary evidence she couldn't dispute displayed on screens for hundreds of millions to see. The psychological impact on her reportedly went beyond political defeat. This was the second time Trump had destroyed her, first by winning an election she had been assured was hers, now by systematically dismantling her legacy with her own documented misdeeds. Friends worried about her mental health, and her staff worried about her ability to ever appear in public again. The woman who had spent decades in public life, who had thrived in the spotlight, who had survived scandal after scandal, had finally met an accountability she couldn't dodge. 3 weeks after the debate, Hillary's attorney released a terse statement that political observers immediately recognized as a surrender. Secretary Clinton has decided to step away from public life to focus on private pursuits and spend time with family. She will not be making further public appearances or statements at this time. The statement didn't mention the debate. It didn't need to. Everyone knew exactly why Hillary Clinton was retiring from public life. Trump had finally, definitively ended her political career, not through legal action or investigation, but by simply forcing her to answer on live television with evidence in front of the world for everything she had spent years avoiding. Political insiders understood the real message. She was done. Trump had finally, definitively destroyed her political relevance by forcing her to defend on live television, without the filter of friendly media, every scandal she had spent years avoiding. The 2016 election was suddenly reframed in public consciousness. What many had dismissed as Trump's conspiracy theories or partisan attacks were now seen as documented concerns, backed by evidence, and the narrative shifted from Trump attacked an innocent woman to Trump was right about Clinton corruption all along. Democratic Party leaders quietly celebrated her exit from public life, while publicly expressing support, as they had long seen her as a liability, someone who couldn't let go of 2016, who alienated swing voters, and who provided ammunition for Republicans. One Democratic strategist was quoted anonymously saying, "Trump did us a favor. She needed to go away, and wouldn't do it voluntarily. Now, she has to." 6 months after the debate, the Republican-controlled House announced the formation of a select committee to investigate the Clinton Foundation and Uranium One with subpoena power. Democrats screamed political persecution, but polling showed 64% of Americans supported the investigation after watching the debate evidence. Trump himself rarely mentioned the debate specifically in subsequent appearances, but he didn't need to. The video spoke for itself. Over 250 million views of Hillary exposed and discredited with her own documented scandals. When asked about it at a rally 3 months later, Trump simply smiled and said, "I brought the receipts. America saw them. That's all that matters." 1 year after the debate, it had fundamentally altered how Americans viewed the 2016 election. Hillary Clinton and the scandals that had dogged her career, what she had tried to bury with fake news, and Russian disinformation claims had been exhumed on live television with supporting documentation. Trump had gotten his ultimate vindication, not in a courtroom, not through investigations, but on live television with evidence, forcing Hillary to defend the indefensible in front of hundreds of millions of viewers worldwide. This wasn't just a debate. This was a trial. Donald Trump didn't come to exchange policy positions or discuss America's future. He came to prosecute Hillary Clinton for crimes and corruption that had haunted her for years, but never quite stuck, because the media and institutions protected her. For 2 hours, with documents, evidence, and facts, he put her record on trial in front of the American people, with no friendly moderators to protect her, no ability to dismiss it as fake news, just her, Trump, and the receipts, the deleted emails, the destroyed devices, the classified information on a private server, the Clinton Foundation pay-to-play, foreign governments donating millions while she ran the State Department, Uranium One, and the $145 million from Russians, Benghazi, the denied security requests, the 4 dead Americans, the lies to their families, the Wall Street speeches, and the admission she kept public and private positions, calling American voters deplorable, and never accepting her 2016 loss. All of it documented, all of it proven, all of it undeniable. Trump showed America something crucial. The scandals weren't conspiracy theories, they were documented facts that she had managed to avoid confronting directly until that debate. The media had helped her. The institutions had protected her, but put her on a stage with someone who had compiled the evidence and wasn't afraid to use it. And the house of cards collapsed. Hillary Clinton spent years saying Trump should be in prison. that he was a criminal, that he was corrupt, that history would condemn him. And in 2 hours, he proved that every accusation was projection, that she was the one who destroyed evidence, sold access, lied to families, and profited from public service. The receipts were